The next objective we will cover is determining the intercepts of a function. Before we go into what's actually written here, let's just think about this. Let's say that I draw, and you don't have to draw this as you take notes along, but just think about this. Here's a graph. Label your x and y axes. We always label our axes. I'm going to draw a very strange looking graph. Is this a function? No. Why? Fails the vertical line test. But let's look at the intercepts. I see 1, 2, 3 x-intercepts. Right? If I were going to make up points for those x-intercepts, I might say that this one is maybe negative 8, 0. I might say that that one is negative 1, 0. And then I might say this one is 6, 0. So notice for all of these x-intercepts where the graph is hitting the x-axis, the y-coordinate is 0. So to find the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0 and you solve for x. It's possible you get more than one answer. Let's look at the y-intercepts of this graph, not a function, but of this graph. Here's a y-intercept, here's a y-intercept, and here's another y-intercept. If I was going to make up points for these, I might say this is the 0.05, I might say that's the 0.01, and I might say that this is the 0.0-9. For all of these y-intercepts that hit the y-axis, notice that the x-coordinate is 0. So to find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0 and you solve for y. Let's put that into practice into these next 3 examples where we find intercepts. And notice all these intercepts that I listed are points. They are ordered pairs, an x value and a y value, and one of those is always 0. So I'm going to begin by finding the y-intercept for number 14. To do that, we set x equal to 0. So I'm going to plug 0 into f. I get 0 squared minus 4, which is negative 4. So the y-intercept is the point 0, negative 4. That's our y-intercept. X is 0, y came out to be negative 4. To find the x-intercept, I'm going to set y equal to 0. Y is the entire function. So we're setting the entire function f of x equal to 0. So I'm replacing f of x with 0. I get 0 equals x squared minus 4. I'm going to add 4 to both sides of that equation to get that 4 is equal to x squared. And then I'm going to square root both sides. Whenever we square root, remember to do plus or minus to get that x is plus or minus 2. So x could be a positive 2 to give us an x-intercept of 2, 0, or x could be a negative 2. So this function has 3 intercepts, 1 y-intercept and 2 x-intercepts. Example 15, let's find the y-intercept by setting x equal to 0. 3 minus the absolute value is simply 3. 3 minus the absolute value of 0 is simply 3. So our y-intercept is the 0.03. To find our x-intercept, we need to set the entire function equal to 0. So I'm replacing g of x with 0. Get 0 is equal to 3 minus the absolute value of x. We can add the absolute value of x to both sides of this equation. Just remember, that's an absolute value equation now. To isolate it, we need to get the absolute value on one side by itself. That's a positive number, so we break this off, set the inside equal to the positive and the negative. We get 2 different x-intercepts. One at 3, 0 and one at negative 3, 0. So this function also had 3 intercepts. Example 16, let's find the y-intercept. It's usually easier to find the y-intercept because we just have to plug in 0. 2 minus the square root of 0 is just 2. So the y-intercept is 0, 2. But when I set this entire equation equal to 0, I have 0 equals 2 minus the square root of x. I'm going to add the square root of x to both sides of the equation, so I get the square root of x is equal to 2. And then I'll square both sides of the equation to get that x is equal to 4. So this equation only has one x-intercept at 4, 0. It is possible that a function does not have intercepts, doesn't have an x-intercept, or doesn't have a y-intercept, and we'll see examples of that as well later on in this course. Note that intercepts are points, not just numbers. Every answer that I've circled is a point, an ordered point XY. When you do your homework online, I think some of the questions will ask you for just numbers. But as far as assignments that you turn in class to me or on a test, you need to be giving me points, ordered pairs as your intercepts.